Okay, so I've got my waterways in the scene and on this layer, and they're appropriately dark enough so that in a height map they'll show up as being the lower points. I've got my hills, which I did a couple of videos ago. I've still got to do my mountains. Now, the problem with the hills, though, is well, there's a few things. First of all, they're perfect little ovals, more or less, and they're massively huge in some cases. I mean, look at these hills are as large as some of the mountains that I have. So that doesn't quite work. Now it makes sense because when we look at the original thing that I started with, we'll see that that's kind of what I was doing. Is I was looking at, okay, here's a couple of hills. I'll put a couple of hills in here. Oh, there's a few hills. We'll put some hills in there, and so forth. So that's fine. But I think now is where we start deviating from the map a little bit more and doing things that maybe fall within the realm of reality, more or less, right? So I think what I'll do is I'll zoom in and I'll just start with these massive hills as an example. I think what I'll do is I'll use the ellipse select tool, get that sized about right, and then I'll hold the shift button down and I think I'll do another ellipse. Let's see if I can, yeah, that'll work. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I've accidentally clicked kind of a nothing there, but we'll just go with this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I am going to scale this down. I've got my transform tools, for example, up here. So what I'll do is I'll just scale it down and I will grab that and get it down to something like that. And then we'll hit enter. All right, great. So now what I think I want to do is I want to copy, you know what, I'll move it a little bit. So I'll go to my transform tools and I've got the move option. Let's just go ahead and move that. I'm just going to use the arrow keys in this case. And put it something like that maybe. Now the other thing then I'll do is I'll do a control copy, control C. And let's do a control V and create another hill. And let's see if we can't move that as well. So let's just move it. What I'll do actually is let's go to the tools, the transform tools again, and maybe we'll rotate this. And we'll do something like that. And let's grab this again and move it some more. And maybe kind of overlap those two hills a little bit. And then maybe I end up getting a slightly less, more of an odd-shaped hill happening. So we'll go ahead and, you know what, I'm going to anchor that layer. Okay, so then I'll go ahead and I'll anchor that layer. And then maybe I'll pop one more in. So let's do another control V. And let's grab this guy and move him. Where do we want to move him? So let's grab him and move him maybe over here. I'm not going to worry too much about perfection. Because now what I'll do is I'll anchor this layer. And then I think what I'll do is I will go ahead and start doing a little bit of smudging and cloning to make some changes to what's going on. So we'll start with the cloning tool. Oh, that's pretty big. So let's scale that down a bunch, shall we? Yeah, something like that maybe. I'll hit Control and click. And then maybe what I'll do is I'll come over here and I'll start moving around and seeing what we get. Just kind of like getting those hills to repeat a little bit. in one form or another. Maybe I'll move the control button again, and we'll start doing the same thing here. And maybe we'll do it here as well. I mean, right now I'm just sort of playing around. But just kind of getting a little bit of variation happening within these hills, and they become a little more irregular. So kind of continue with that process, and then the other thing I might do is I might come in here and I might grab my smudge tool, and I might zoom in a little bit, but maybe I'll grab my smudge tool. Yeah, I'll leave the size a little bit on the smaller side. Not too much force, but just kind of like smudging things in so that those low spots become slightly less low. Maybe I also use the blur and sharpen tool to blur some of the edges where there are some. Maybe in a case like that, I strengthen the force a little bit. But just kind of playing around, I'm going to zoom out. I mean, this is far from done. But, if we go back to a smaller scale, now clearly there's work to be done, but that starts looking a little bit more like, a range or an area where there's some hills. So I'll kind of go through that process throughout some of the areas in this map and see where that gets me.